This video is about Solver, which is a tool in Excel that uses techniques from operations research to find optimal solutions for all kinds of decision problems. Now, to do that, you have to formulate what's called a linear programming model, and it has to answer the three following questions. What are the decisions to be made? What are the constraints on these decisions? And what is the overall measure of performance for these decisions? To do that, we're going to use Excel to build the model. All right, so in Excel, you see on the screen an Excel spreadsheet that's about a furniture company who produces 4 types of custom shelving units, and there's a certain amount of labor and materials that you have to use to produce these units, and our job is to maximize the number of units produced in 1 week. All right, now, to do that, we already have our figures in here of what the costs are and the number of hours. We have a sum for the total once we find the number of units that we're going to produce. And we have as well total number of hours for the week and total value of the materials ready as well once we find those units to manufacture. We have set up in here, I went ahead and put so we could see them easily, the constraints that are within this table, and also some constraints that are within the instructions. First thing we have to do is use Solver. So your Solver may be installed on your machine already. If it is, it would be under the Data tab in the ribbon to the right-hand side, Solver. If it is not, you must go to File, go to Options. You'll go down to Add-ins, and you'll see Excel Add-in at the bottom, and click on Go. You will pop up the box, make sure that the little check mark is beside the Solver add-in, and click OK. And then you will see the Solver option under the Data tab. All right, click on Solver. This is the Solver dialog box. In the Solver dialog box, the first thing that you want to do is set your objective. To set your objective, we've already said that we have to find the maximum number of units produced in 1 week. And to do that, that is actually the total of the number of units. It's kind of hard to see over here, so I'll move this over. And so once I've clicked into this set objective box, I'm going to click on the total, which is G9. And that will be where my objective is set. It told me in the instructions that I'm maximizing the number of units. So up here, I've got to make sure max is set. It isn't always the case. Sometimes you minimize things like expenses, or you may have an exact value that you're trying to hit, and that's what you would use the value of for. We're going to solve this problem by changing the cells in here. We'll start with C. So make sure you've clicked into by changing variable cells, and you're going to drag it across these cells that you're going to change. That will put the range in there of C9 through F9, which are for those 4 different type of custom shelving that we're manufacturing. Now, once we've done that, you need to come down. You want to make sure that you're using the Simplex LP, which is for linear programming. And also under Options, you'll see that there's one called Ignore Integer Constraints. You want to make sure that is not checked. All right, now, once we have those things set, we can add our constraints. And our constraints are things like, in this table, we have 3 shelf units at the top. We have to produce at least 1. At the most, we can produce 30. And it has to be an integer, which means it has to be a whole number. And as well in the instructions, it tells us we cannot exceed 5,200 hours. We cannot exceed 55,000 in materials. So these type of things are the constraints that we have to add into this Solver dialog box. So let's go ahead and add the first one. We click Add. Once we click Add, okay, we have to say the cell we're referencing. So in this case, we'll do the 3 shelf first, which means in our spreadsheet, the 3 shelf is C9. Our 3 shelf unit has to be at least 1, so that means it has to be greater than or equal to 1. We can add the next one, which says that the 3-shelf unit has to produce at least 30. So that means in here, again, we have to go to C9, and it has to be less than or equal to 30. Add another one. It also has to be an integer. So C9 has to be equal to an integer, which is int. So make sure to drop that little box down, and then it'll automatically put the word integer in for you. All right, I'm going to let you finish all the other constraints that are in this table, but don't forget the ones that are in your instructions as well, and we'll do one of those. I'm going to add, and it says that G11, which is your total for the total hours for the week, so G11, and it cannot exceed 5,200 hours, so it has to be less than or equal to 5,200. And then again, I'd finish up any of these constraints that we have to have in there, and then once I've done them all, I click OK. Now, I'm showing you up here 4 I did as examples. You have more than that you need to put in there to be able to run the solver and solve this particular decision based on the constraints that you have identified. Now, once you have them all in there, you're going to save your model. You do that by coming over onto your sheet, and you want to make sure that we're going to save it where it says Save Solver Model over here. Okay, make sure that nothing's changed because you know that you are actually solving up here in your set objective. Make sure that it still says G9 there. Okay, you're changing cells again are C9 through F9, and you're maximizing, and you have all your constraints in there. Now, once you have all that done, you're going to save the model, and we're going to save it into G16. So click on Save, and in here, you're going to put it onto G16, so it'll put that into your model, and then hit the Save button. It will automatically put in there for you, and it will populate your box for you. Now, I don't have all the constraints in here, so I haven't found the optimal solution yet, okay, but when you have them all in there, it will populate it for you. Then, once you've saved your model, the next thing you can do is solve it. So you'll hit the Solve, okay, and then you need to run what's called an answer report. And so in here, you make sure you click on right here where it says Answer, and then you click OK. All right, once you have that up there, then it will populate this for you. And again, I don't have them all in there, so this is not the correct answer for you, but it gives you an example of how to do this. Make sure to change the tab by renaming it to 1 week report. And this report will summarize what your linear programming model looks like. And after you finish that, make sure to go to File, and under Protect the Workbook, mark your Excel file as final.